Yeah, so there was one word which was mentioned, like, valuation, right? So let me talk sometime on this topic. So statement, so pre-money valuation of the company for the purpose of this investment would be 10 crores, for total investment 2.5 crores for 20%. This was the statement given to you, and it says fully dilutable basis post financing. So how do you do this calculation? So pre-money valuation plus investment amount is equal to post-money valuation. Very simple formula. So pre-money valuation was given to you was 10 crores plus 2.5 crores investor is investing. That's where you get 12.5 crores post-money. So investment amount divided by post-money is equal to ownership. So that's where you are giving away 20% ownership of your company to the investors. Fully dilutable basis post-financing. So you have given away 20% equity to the investor, and let's say there is a new investor later on down the line after 6 months coming in and he is ready to invest. What happens at that point of time? If this investor decides to continue and you are giving away additional equity to the other investor along with founder members, even the existing investor is going to dilute his stake in the company. Very important clause. If it says fully non-dilutable basis, it means that even if you are diluting, if you are giving away more equity to any other external investors or even founders' equity, right? Investors' stake in the company should remain 20% all the time. So what will happen is, at that point of time, you have to give away additional shares to the existing investors if this statement says non-dilutable basis. Right? So you have to be very, so that's where you have to understand this, each word and each terms properly.
Yeah, how many of you understand non-dilutable equity?
So non-dilutable is like he said, if my stock is non-dilutable, then when somebody else invests, everybody else, I'm just assuming I'm non-dilutable, everybody else is dilutable. So their equity gets diluted, mine does not get diluted.
So that happens by issuing the fresh share.
Yes, to keep 5% at what you will say.
So always worry about when it is written non-dilutable equity. Right? Which means that, so a lot of places, especially in the accelerator, right, where you get incubated or accelerated, they mention non-dilutable equity, which means that even after financing, so let's assume you are given 2% equity and there are 3 or 4 rounds happened across. In effect, you are actually given 10% almost. Because every time the round happens, you are issuing more and more, and that 2% remains permanently within till whatever 4th or 5th round. So always take care of this fully diluted basis.
So that is number of shares which is in fresh issue of shares. So 2% share holding is not dilutable. That is issuing the fresh shares to him as well.
At zero cost.
At zero cost. At zero cost.
Investment valuation will increase.
Absolutely. So he's benefit.
So that's why such kind of non-dilutable
Somebody had
basis.
mentioned across, right? That different terms, difficult terms. I think gentlemen saying that. So this is one word you need to take care very well, right? Whenever there is non-dilutable written across, you need to be cautious.
Essentially, what he's saying is, if it's not dilutable, and if it's initial percentage or 2%, every time you raise money, you're supposed to give the actual amount that you're paid to.
So you have to retain
No, not amount.
Not the amount,
Equity.
which is, so let's say 4 rounds have happened, so it essentially means 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2.
No. At the end of 4 rounds, equity should still be
Still be 2%.
Okay. So he has to.
So whatever is required to do across to keep this equity 2%, you will keep on giving in more shares. So idea is for every round, typically on a fully diluted basis, what will happen is this 2% will become possibly 0.5.
Yeah.
So normally angel investors look for
Always.
possible
Yeah, are good guys.
Issuing shares as you means you are issuing a company value from the developer and no. So when you issue the fresh shares to non-diluted basis, that is 0 rupees, doesn't it violate the RBI norms?
There is no RBI norms to issue a share.
The share cannot be evaluated below the.
So then that's an income tax stuff
So it's
which
a-
qualifies for a tax purpose differently. But as far as for me, I'm getting that shares at free. I might end up paying tax on that.
He is right actually. For the RBI, when you issue FCGP, I have to file valuation reports. If the valuation.
So that is when you,
It's not allowed.
okay, so this FCGPR thing will come and RBI will come into picture if you are getting foreign money, right? Now here, even if you are issuing zero value shares to Indian investor, RBI is not there in picture. For Indian investors, you don't need any RBI reporting. There is no RBI reporting. Reporting or compliances will come with ROC, with income tax.
Even ROC is.
Right? Okay. Another thing is that for you, fine, at the most just to take some value, investor may put 10 rupees, which is fine, right? And you can allot shares to the investor, right?
It's zero, some value.
Some value. It may be even 5 rupees, whatever, right? And you can issue shares to investors, right? But the value of this 5 rupees share or 10 rupees share is probably, multi times.
Only at the face value will be getting.
Yeah, whatever. The idea is anybody who is having that clause will get benefited. As an entrepreneur, you need to be okay. You want to do that, that's a different story, right? But you should be aware about what you are signing on.
There are ways and means. You may say that I don't want to disturb my company books. Out of my own personal capacity, I'll transfer some shares into investor's account. Investor is fine as long as he is getting his required stake, and same time, your founder's stake in the company is not getting reduced drastically.
So one more anecdote. If you don't know that how this credit or how the risk is, exposure is done across, then you will always fall short. Right? So always understand how to disclose and understand what are the credit risks, what do you work upon, right? So, anyways, go ahead.
So another major clause what you would see on term sheet, the type of security and conversion. So typically you have these 3 options: equity, CCPS, which is most preferred choice by most of the angels, and convertible note or convertible debt, right? So typically CCPS gets converted into equity within 20 years from the date of allotment. Right. So compulsorily convertible preferential shares. It's a kind of equity, but it has some different weightage. So compulsory convertible preferential shares. So within 20 years or before, this CCPS needs to be converted into equity shares. So let me make you clear very here. Initially, when you are forming a company with bare minimum capital, you issue equity to founder members, right? It's an equity what you are issuing, right? When investor comes on board, you are issuing CCPS, which is a different series of equity, right? This CCPS will always have higher priority and more weightage over and above equity shares. So, for example, whenever I'm coming to that point later on, let's say down the line when you have to issue dividends or at the time of liquidation in the company, the CCPS holders, that is your investors, will have first right over this money. So, if you decide to issue dividends, first you have to clear dividends for your CCPS shareholders. After that, you can give away money to your equity shareholders. So this is just one example. Similarly, let's say there is a merger acquisition or there is an exit opportunity. CCPS holder will always have first priority. So that's where compulsorily convertible preferential shares. You are giving preference to the shareholders who are holding this kind of shares.
Excuse me, but what about the voting rights? Is it something like normal preferred shares?
No.
Because the voting rights are not there, but they get the
Yes. So there also these people will have preference. So I'm coming to that. So there are certain activities where investor wants to make sure that without their voting rights or without their consent, you are not executing such activities like issuing additional equity to new investors, right? Or liquidation or merger acquisition, where there is going to create some material impact to the existing investors. So in such kind of scenarios, the investor are going to ensure that they have major voting rights on their account.
never they are going to enter the rest of the world. Right?
Yeah. tell me.
CCD is the same as CCD.
No. So this is convertible note, wherein it's a kind of loan which you are taking from investors, right? With the commitment that after certain period, this loan will be converted into equity or CCPS, right? So what is the difference between loan and equity? Any idea? Anybody here?
Interest.
Loan is not compulsory, you have to pay back.
Interest you have to pay, and loan, which is you are supposed to return that, right? In case of equity, it's an investment, right? It can flourish, it can give you multi-X returns as and when you exit or as and when you sell, right? And in case if company is not performing, the value of that equity may go down to zero also, right? So whenever there is a liquidation happening in your company, right, and you have to, when you sell off your assets and things like that, first you have to clear your loans or your liabilities, right? And after that, if anything remains, then that money goes back to the founder members, right? Now this kind of scenario you would see when there is no investor on board, right? But in case if there is an investor on board, the investor would say that, okay, in case of liquidity, first you clear our payments, our dividends, our investments, and so on. After that, whatever is remaining, you do whatever you want. You clear payments of your liabilities and things like that. I'm coming to that point.
Lord, by law, you have to pay your liabilities before your preference shareholders. By law, you have to pay your external liabilities before your preference shareholders.
So no. So here, that's where this particular point. So I'm coming to that point later. Let's move on.
Let me share an anecdote. Always let the investor take his first cut and then whatever remains gets for the entrepreneur. And this is typically designed across, because investors are, putting in a lot of effort in terms of the investments which are going into specific companies, and that's the only way to protect their interest with all these terms and conditions. So we'll come to that later from an investor perspective, but idea is the preference will always be going to the investor. In fact, surprisingly, me as an angel, I've seen across a lot of series A, B, C, D, and I find it very difficult. Me as an angel have taken the largest risk, and the guy who's coming at series E has the lowest risk, but it is last in, first out. So guy who is going to come in at series E, the investor will have first right on the money, on exit or whatever happens across, and I would be before the entrepreneur as an angel investor. So it's a very unique positioning where it's last in, first out on anything and everything what happens across. So that's how all agreements are designed.
No, I was only saying that even if I agree to this, by law I'm supposed to pay my debts first.
I wouldn't know that. So that's not my subject.
Another thing here, the conversion ratio, typically it is 1:1, but again, it depends how exactly the terms and conditions you have agreed upon with the investors, right? So if you are holding one CCPS, you are supposed to give away one equity share. Convertible debt, within 5 years from the date of investment amount to be adjusted with valuation at the time of conversion. This is in case if you are converting your debt, the CCD into equity. And also considering the unpaid interest. So since you are a startup, it may happen that there is a particular interest component which you are supposed to pay, which you have not paid over a period of time, but then at the time of conversion, this will be adjusted.
So here I would like to just share an investor perspective. Typically investors or especially VCs will never sign on the convertible debt. Right? Because I'm very unsure what equity I will get, right? Whether it's going to be 5%, 10%. So convertible debt also does not give you rights. So if you are going to push VC saying that, let's do convertible note, they are not going to agree. Secondly, why convertible notes work across is saying that we both are disagreeing on a valuation. So what we decide between entrepreneur and an investor, saying that let's push this problem little later, saying that after a year or two, whenever next round happens, we will decide the valuation and that time we will agree on an equity stuff. So it's like pushing the problem for a later. Now what happens across in many of the cases where angels have signed convertible note, they put in a floor and a cap, saying that beyond this, if it is there, then his equity conversion, this is the cap. Right? So let's say my cap is at 50 crore, and let's say your next round happens at 100 crore, his equity will be converted at 50 crore. And there is a floor, saying that beyond that, let's say there is a down round which is happening, he will get more shares. So that's how people have protected. But still, convertible note is not a preferred instrument in India because rights are not there.
Initially, loan you take for few years, whereas equity is lasting for longer period. Even if it is, CCD, over a period of time you are going to convert into equity, and that's where you are going to get new investor coming in. Conversion? So it's an income tax related matter, and at the same time you have to see what is the valuation of your company, the actual book valuation of your company at that point of time vis-a-vis the value at which the conversion is taking place. And yes, there might be deemed income tax applicable there.
Is there a difference between convertible and compulsory convertible? CCD and convertible debt. Is there a difference between the two?
So CCPS is compulsory.
CCD and CCD.
So CCD is also a compulsory convertible debentures.
Yes, and you talk about convertible debentures, those are the same concept.
Yes, it's same.
And with the number of years, you said 25, these are statutory requirements.
Statutory requirements. It can happen before that also.
Who decides when it converts, how it basically does?
So that is what is predefined as a part of your SHA and term sheet.
So idea is if any entrepreneur is not converting in 2 or 3 years, for me it's a dead investment. If I'm doing an angel investment, 3 साल में अगर round raise नहीं हो रहा है next, मेरा exit is very difficult. Secondly, even for this convertible debt, right? If next round is not happening, if it's not converting, then possibly it's a lifestyle business. You guys are, any entrepreneur is not raising money, it's never going to happen. So 20 years or 5 years are too far away for an investor perspective, right? If that business, and even for an entrepreneur, right? If he has to give an exit, which is defined in an SHA, saying that after 72 months or whatever, you are obliged to give